Welcome to Gamer Chronicles, the podcast where pixels tell stories and gamers become legends. I'm your host, Aiden, and I will be guiding you through the immersive worlds of RPGs. So today I'm going to talk about Satisfactory 1.0, which is in a nutshell, a resource management game. That's, the easy way to put it. But it is so much more than just managing resources. If only it was that simple. I've been playing this game since it came out in early access. It came out in March 2019, so it came out over 5 years ago in early access, and by a developer called Coffee Stain Studios. If you don't know them, then they're the ones who made Goat Simulator and Deep Rock Galactic. Two great games, especially Deep Rock. Love that game. Still play it to this day, even though it came out ages ago. And I'm saying that Satisfactory came out 5 years ago, still playing it to this day. And it was done in Unreal Engine 4, which is a shame because the Unreal Engine 5, was released, I think, last year. But they already started developing this in Unreal Engine 4. And because they got so far ahead, they didn't transition to 5. So, a very quick overview. So, in 2019, March, it got released as an exclusive on Epic Games Store. I bought it a couple months later because it was delisted from Steam. So I believe it released on both, then got delisted on Steam, and then was Epic only. So this is when Epic was throwing money everywhere and trying to become better than Steam, bigger than Steam, by doing a lot of things like this, by getting exclusives and paying developers for exclusivity. So unfortunately, I have always owned it on Epic. The only game I have on Epic is Satisfactory. That's the only one game I own on Epic. But never mind, I digress. Epic is okay. It's not as shit as the other ones, like Origin, EA, whatever it is now. And Ubisoft, who else had one? Bethesda, all of these silly companies decided to have a ton of these gaming platforms, which is ridiculous. We're PC gamers, we only need one, and Steam is the one. But Epic is better for the devs because they gave them more money. So I wasn't too bummed when I paid for it on Epic for Satisfactory, and it was cheap back then. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was £20, $30, something like that. Quite reasonable. Now it's about double that price, which is one of the things with early access. You take a risk, but obviously Coffee Stain Studios, very good studio. So, game came out, early access, March 2019, and then a year later, in June 2020, is when it got released on Steam. Had a great reception initially, because it was, Factorio, if you ever played that game, was this game from a top view perspective. It was almost exactly the same game, except you weren't in it, because this is a 3D game where you single build things, unlike Factorio, where it's a top view game where you can manage things a lot better. So originally when the game came out, it was a bit of just a shell of itself, considering that it was just an introduction. This is what you can do. It had basic mechanics, some resource gathering, and a research tree. That was it. That was effectively the game. And there wasn't really enough to keep bringing you into it. But it still looked well polished at the time. And then, they slowly introduced things. So I'm not going to cover all the updates. I'm going to jump a couple. But in update 3, they introduced all the fluid mechanics, the hypertubes, the pipes. For me, it was always, I played this game for a little bit, for about 10 hours, and then I left it alone for a year. Then they introduced the pipes, and again, so on and so forth. And then April 2021 is when they put in particle accelerators and tier 8 items like uranium, waste disposal, and things like that. And then update 6 was a big one, which enhanced exploration tools, gave you new weapons, and made the UI just generally better. And then update 7 is when the new factory floor designs and optimizations came in. So between, I think, update 6 and now, so between June 2022 and release 1, I didn't play the game at all because it wasn't fully confirmed when the release was coming, but it was September 2024 when they confirmed it. So for about 2 years, I didn't play this game. So it was great to get back into it, which is what I've done. I've learned a lot of mistakes from the past, which I've now applied to the game. And, the game is for a broad audience. If you enjoy, like myself, because I'm an engineer, I love problem solving and automation games. But it also brings in a lot of creativity and problem solving. And you know what? A lot of maths as well, but if you're genuinely not good with your maths, which quite a few people aren't, which is fine, there are great little flowchart calculators out there that'll do everything for you. So you put, I want to make, let's say, 120 screws. How many iron rods do I need in order to do that? How many iron ingots do I need to make those iron rods? And then how much ore do I need per minute to do that? That'll do it all for you. Because otherwise you have to work it all out, which I enjoy doing. So I just sit there and work everything out. But there are calculators that are very good online. There's one dedicated on Steam for it, and quite a few other ones as well. So if you're worried about that side of things, that's quite easy. And you can always bring a friend in because it has multiplayer, where I think you can have up to 4 people. I've never played it multiplayer before, but you can build it a lot faster. The only problem is when you're doing it multiplayer, it might not end up being the way you want it to be. As a whole overview of the game, so you start off as a pioneer working for the Fix-It Corporation, and you're sent to an alien planet where you have to build increasingly complex automated factories. And you have a choice of different planets to go to. There are, I think, 4. Obviously, with more complexity as you choose up which one you want. The first couple are quite easy and quite nice going with a lot of resources quite close by, while as you go further out, things get more and more complicated. And as you explore it, you obviously know this is for a huge corporation, and you know how they all are. So you kind of uncover the motives and the world itself by exploring, and it is big. It's divided into several biomes itself. So the one I'm playing at the moment has got deserts and grasslands, but there are also swamps and forests. And every single one has its, unique flora and different challenges that you have to overcome depending on which map you do. I mean, fortunately, the one I'm on right now is quite flat. Yes, you can climb up places, but it's quite easy to get around, while other ones aren't so easy to get around. Now, at its core, Satisfactory is a factory building game. You have to build huge, efficient factories. Where I've learned from my mistakes, because you think, I'm going to start and I'm going to build this factory that does this, and you start just spreading out everywhere. If you want to keep everything contained in a central location, you can't spread out everywhere. If you want to spread out everywhere, you can have like mini factories everywhere. But if you want a big, huge factory, then you go up. So what you do is you basically start at the bottom with your basic foundation, and then you build continuously upwards and space it a bit out, and then you have a huge factory doing many, many things. And it is difficult to get around, I won't lie, as you go higher and higher. But then you unlock cool things like the jetpack, so you can just jump around faster. You can unlock Blade Runner legs, so like in Cyberpunk, that makes you jump higher, run faster. So there are quite a few things to help you get around quicker. And I have to say the beginning is a huge grind because you have to do everything manually first, starting with trees, wood, leaves, using a crappy power plant to power everything. And it can be tedious in the beginning. It's very overwhelming at different stages of the game, especially when you have to start with nothing and then obviously build it up. Because you're not only managing resources, you also have to optimize your power, because if you lose power, then things trip, and that starts to become a nightmare. Because the whole game is basically, you can't do anything manual after a while, because things just get too complicated. So everything's based on automation. You have to start setting up everything, using conveyor belts to move things between machines, and pipes for fluid management. And then it gets even more complicated, because where you've got multiple conveyors from one item coming into one place, you have to merge it together and then, let's say, split it out, use elevators to move things up or down. All that while also managing your power, making sure that, let's say, if you have a ton of coal and water, which goes into a coal power plant, neither one runs out. Because otherwise, then, if that happens, and let's say your power goes down, it takes a while to buffer pipes. So you have to start up your coal power plant some other way, which I found out the hard way, because obviously that went down, and you then have to buffer your water system. So you should try and keep that on a separate power grid if you can. So it's learning about mistakes like this that you make, and it's not only just as you explore further, there are hostile creatures that will attack you on sight. Yes, you can disable it in the options if you just want a relaxing game playthrough, but who wants that? There are spiders, so if you are arachnophobic, they aren't too bad. They're not like your Hogwarts Legacy spiders. They're a bit creepy, but not Hogwarts Legacy like proper scary spiders. They're like weird looking things. So it's not too bad. But then every single animal you come across has an upsize to it. So let's say you come across a small charger. There'll be a big one. Small spider. There'll be a big one. I think they're called stingers in the game. So there's always going to be that double one. So while you can beat the small ones, you have to remember there's always going to be another tier the further more you venture out, which means then if you die, you respawn without any of the stuff yet you had, so you lose that. So you have to be careful. But later on, you can unlock rifles, rebar guns, explosives. So there's a lot of stuff you can actually do later on in the game to help you with the combat. So combat just becomes more fun, but the thing is you have to do it as well for research purposes, so you have to collect their hides and then research them into alien DNA pods and use that to do some research for things, because you have to unlock things as well using something called the MAM, where you can put in hard drives that you find for being able to optimize recipes. Because in the beginning, when you find hard drives, you're like, oh, I'll never need that recipe. That's just crap. And then you realize later on that, oh, I should have taken that recipe and not the other one, because now I'm going to struggle a bit. That's the game for you. It just punishes you for every single mistake you make. If you don't build your factory right first time, like you've never played this game before, you will be punished later on in the game, because it will be a mess of everything. Which is why it's a good idea to always go up, because what you can do then is, let's say you've made a really huge cock up, which has happened to me. Even though I've played this game many times before, I realized that, my steel production is all the way on the middle floor, but I don't have any space to produce, industrial beams. So I have to basically send everything through the floor using like holes for conveyors in the floor all the way upstairs, and then whatever I have upstairs, sending it all the way back down on another conveyor. So it's easier to kind of have a mess of conveyor belts on the roofs of each of your floors instead of on the floor, because then you can't move around or anything else. Keep the mess up there, and it'll be easier for you in the long run. There is also a tier and progression system, which is so tedious. It is one of the most difficult tier systems I have ever done. And I'm only saying that because where you're making, let's say, easy things, you have to load something called the space elevator, which is the core mechanic, which is your progression tool. And you have to send up really complicated materials up the space elevator. For example, when you're unlocking your tiers and progression in the beginning, you'll be building single items, but then to go to the next tier, you'll need to do double items. And then to go another tier, you'll need a unit that does 4 things. And then to go another tier, you'll need all the fluids that you're doing, plus all of that. It's all about enjoying what you're doing. It's not really a game you can rush, because if you rush it, you're going to make mistakes, have a mess, and you just won't enjoy it. So you have to take your time to make things a bit easier. You've got vehicles that you can make and transportation, so like trains with stations where things get dropped off. So I've got 6 stations and the train has 12 cargo loads. So where you stop, you pick up 2 on each station, and then you also have to manage where each one's picked up from. So it's a very, very long, complicated game, but as you go further out, then you need the transport more. And then later on in the game, you get the good stuff, like nuclear energy, particle accelerators, supercomputers, propulsion rockets. You get quite a lot of good stuff later on. Now, in terms of visuals and sound designs, the game is visually stunning. It's got its colorful alien aesthetics from lush forests to barren deserts. It is a great looking game. The sound design is excellent. All the mechanical noises of the factories and everything else, they're good. The music does get a bit repetitive because there's not a lot of it, so you kind of have to try and look for tapes in the game, and then you can diversify your music in the game if you find those tapes. That is, my take on Satisfactory is an amazing game. It's, complexity meets creativity, and strikes a great balance between complex logistic puzzles and creative freedom, which makes it really addictive for people like me who enjoy problem solving. It's weird because I go to work and I need to make things more efficient, but then in Satisfactory I seem to be more dedicated to it. It's also got great longevity and replayability. The worlds are huge, and many ways to optimize production. Sometimes you just say, "Oh, screw this, I'm going to restart." It'll keep you going. I've played this game for over 180 hours now, and still going. So I can't complain. You will get your money's worth. At times it will get a bit strenuous and difficult and overwhelming, but trust me, stick with this game and you will love it. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode about Satisfactory. I know I love the game. Great game. I highly suggest you buy it. Doesn't matter where you buy it from. Just buy it. Give the devs some money. They are amazing developers. And if you enjoyed this show, please do leave some feedback. Please also subscribe to the podcast. That would be a real help. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I will be back here next week with another episode. So until then, have a great week, everybody.